The clearest test of a relationship is often not how someone treats you when you are falling apart, but how they respond when you begin to rise. Pain is easy for many people to stand beside. Struggle makes others feel safe. When you are lost, uncertain, broken, or in need, certain people suddenly become kind, available, and supportive. They know how to comfort you when your world is heavy. They know how to encourage you when you are weak. But the moment your life starts changing for the better, the moment your confidence grows, your discipline sharpens, your opportunities expand, and your future begins to look brighter, something shifts. Their energy changes. The excitement in their voice becomes quieter. Their support becomes less natural. Their congratulations sound forced. Their presence becomes inconsistent. And sometimes, without any argument, without any dramatic conflict, they slowly begin to pull away. That is when you must become more observant, because a genuine friend does not need you to stay small in order to feel secure. A real friend does not need you to remain struggling so they can feel comfortable with themselves. Your growth does not threaten someone who truly cares about you. Your success does not shake their identity. When something good happens to you, they can celebrate it wholeheartedly without secretly measuring their life against yours. But a person carrying hidden resentment experiences your progress differently. Your success becomes a mirror, and in that mirror, they do not just see you rising, they see what they believe is missing in themselves. You get promoted, and instead of asking how you earned it, they talk about how lucky you were. You accomplish something difficult, and instead of honoring the effort, they focus on the one detail that could have been better. You become more confident, and suddenly they start reminding you of who you used to be. You improve your appearance, your finances, your career, or your social life, and their behavior becomes strangely uncomfortable. Now, one moment alone proves nothing. People get insecure, people have hard days, people struggle with comparison without consciously wishing harm on anyone. That is why the truth is not found in one incident. The truth is found in the pattern. Watch what happens repeatedly when your life moves forward. Do they celebrate your victories, or do they minimize them? Do they ask questions because they are genuinely interested, or do they immediately search for weakness? Do they encourage your ambitions, or do they keep telling you your goals are unrealistic? Do they seem more energized by your setbacks than by your progress? These questions reveal more than words ever will. One of the most dangerous forms of resentment does not look like hatred. It disguises itself as concern. Someone may say, "I'm just trying to protect you," while constantly discouraging every opportunity that could make you stronger. They may tell you not to take a chance, not because the risk is truly too dangerous, but because your success would change the balance between you. Sometimes people become deeply attached to a version of you they can understand, predict, and control. They feel comfortable with the version of you that doubts yourself, depends on them, stays available, stays small, stays familiar. But when you begin changing, when you start becoming sharper, stronger, more focused, more disciplined, they feel the relationship changing too. Your growth forces them to confront their own stagnation, and instead of confronting themselves, they may try to pull you backward. This is why growth reveals people. But be careful. Do not become arrogant just because someone does not celebrate everything you do, and do not make the mistake of labeling every critical person as an enemy. Healthy friends can challenge you. Real friends can tell you when you are wrong. They can question your decisions. They can offer uncomfortable truths. The difference is not whether they challenge you. The difference is why they do it. A real friend can tell you something hard to hear and still want you to win. A resentful person may disguise discouragement as honesty while becoming visibly uncomfortable every time you move ahead. There is another subtle sign you should never ignore. Watch their energy when other people praise you. Pay attention to their face. Listen to their tone. Notice whether they willingly participate in your joy. Someone who genuinely values you does not need to compete with every compliment you receive, but someone who secretly compares themselves to you may instantly redirect the attention. They may mention their own accomplishments. They may reduce yours. They may shift the conversation away from your moment because your light feels too bright for their comfort. Do not obsess over these details. Observe them. You are not collecting evidence to justify suspicion. You are learning to recognize patterns so you can protect your peace, your confidence, and your relationships. The goal is not to assume everyone is secretly against you. The goal is to stop being blind to what consistent behavior has been trying to show you. Your success does not create resentment in someone else. It reveals what was already living inside them. So keep growing, keep improving, keep becoming stronger, and pay close attention to who becomes sincerely happy when your life gets better and who quietly wishes you would return to the version of yourself they found easier to tolerate. Because sometimes the truest test of friendship is not who stands beside you when you are struggling. It is who can genuinely celebrate you when you begin to rise. And hidden resentment does not always arrive through obvious attack. It often hides behind humor. Not every insult is direct. Not every wound comes announced. Sometimes disrespect comes smiling. Sometimes it comes wrapped in laughter, sarcasm, teasing, and the convenient phrase, "I was only joking." That phrase gives people an easy escape. It allows them to hurt you while pretending they meant nothing by it. It lets them test how far they can go without being held accountable. Now, humor itself is not the problem. Healthy friendships often include laughter, teasing, and lightness. People who truly care about you can joke with you without trying to tear you down. The warning sign appears when the humor keeps moving in one direction, when you are always the target, when the jokes repeatedly make you smaller, and when the laughter seems to come at the expense of your dignity. Notice what happens when other people are around. Do they joke about your failures in front of an audience? Do they bring up private mistakes you once trusted them with? Do they imitate you in a way meant to embarrass you? Do they offer compliments with poison hidden inside them? You actually look good today. You did surprisingly well. I didn't think you were capable of that. Each statement may sound harmless on its own, but repeated patterns reveal intention more clearly than isolated words ever could. A backhanded compliment is especially revealing because it carries two messages. On the surface, it sounds positive. Underneath, it weakens your achievement. It allows the person to claim they praised you while making sure you do not stand too tall. That is how hidden resentment works. It rarely speaks plainly. It looks for plausible deniability. It wants to release hostility without accepting responsibility. So they joke, they tease, they make the sarcastic comment, and then they watch your reaction. If you get upset, they tell you that you are too sensitive. If you stay quiet, they may continue because they believe they have found something they can do without consequence. This is where your self-control matters. Do not explode over one comment. Do not accuse someone of secretly hating you based on a single moment. Emotional reactions make it harder to see clearly. Instead, stay calm enough to study the pattern. Did it happen once, or does it happen constantly? Do they make these comments only around certain people? Do they grow uncomfortable when others praise you? Do they stop when you calmly set a boundary, or do they become more aggressive? What happens after you communicate discomfort tells you a great deal about the relationship. If you say something bothered you and the person truly cares about you, they may apologize. They may explain themselves. They may adjust their behavior. They may not have realized they crossed a line. That is very different from someone who dismisses your feelings, calls you weak, mocks you for objecting, and keeps doing the exact same thing. Respect is revealed after a boundary is spoken. A friend does not have to agree with every emotion you feel, but they should care about the effect their behavior has on you. Someone who secretly resents you may treat your discomfort like entertainment. They may enjoy watching you become defensive because your reaction gives them a sense of power. Do not hand them that satisfaction. You do not need to win every exchange. You do not need a dramatic confrontation. Sometimes the strongest response is simply recognizing what is happening and reducing your emotional investment. Stop giving sensitive information to someone who repeatedly turns it into ammunition. Stop explaining yourself to someone who only wants material for the next joke. Stop confusing familiarity with loyalty, because words reveal patterns when you listen carefully. People can hide their intentions for a while, but repeated behavior is difficult to disguise forever. A joke becomes meaningful when the same person keeps using humor to diminish your confidence, your reputation, or your dignity. So listen beyond the laughter. Sometimes the joke is not a joke at all. Sometimes it is resentment looking for a safe place to hide. Another difficult form of hidden resentment is the kind that presents itself as care. This person may never openly insult you. They may never celebrate your failures. They may stay close to you, speak gently to you, even act loyal to you, while quietly discouraging every step that could improve your life. They want your presence. They want your loyalty. They want your attention, but they do not necessarily want your evolution. That creates a painful contradiction. They want to keep you near, but they become uncomfortable when you begin growing beyond the version of yourself they are used to. So pay close attention to the advice you receive from the people around you. Advice alone is not the problem. Genuine friends should sometimes challenge you. They should warn you about real danger. They should tell you uncomfortable truths when necessary. But there is a difference between protecting you from a genuine risk and protecting themselves from the possibility of your success. When you announce a new goal, what happens? Do they become curious and ask how they can support you? Or do they immediately list everything that could go wrong? When you decide to learn a new skill, do they encourage your effort or do they laugh at the idea? When you begin changing your habits, do they respect the change or do they constantly tempt you back into the behaviors you are trying to leave behind? Again, one moment means little. A pattern means something. Sometimes people become attached not just to you, but to the role you play in their life. Maybe you are the one they call whenever they need attention. Maybe you are the friend who never says no. Maybe you are the person who always joins them in distraction, unhealthy habits, gossip, or endless complaining. As long as you remain in that role, the relationship feels easy. But the moment you change, the balance changes. You begin waking up earlier. You become more disciplined. You stop wasting time. You pursue something serious. You become more intentional with your energy. You grow more selective about who receives your time and attention. And suddenly, the same people who once enjoyed unlimited access to you begin questioning your choices. They say, "You've changed." And maybe you have. But change is not always betrayal. Sometimes change is growth. A person who secretly resents your progress may try to make you feel guilty for becoming more focused. They may say you are taking life too seriously. They may mock your ambition. They may keep dragging your past into the present whenever you start acting differently. They may invite you back into habits that keep you comfortable because your improvement forces them to confront their own lack of movement. This is why you must learn to distinguish genuine concern from disguised discouragement. Genuine concern gives you information and leaves room for your judgment. Hidden resentment creates fear, pressure, and limitation. A true friend might say, "Think carefully. I see a possible risk." A resentful person says, "You're never going to succeed anyway, so why bother?" One protects you. The other tries to reduce you. There is another revealing sign. Some people support your dreams only while those dreams remain small. They are comfortable with your intentions because intentions do not threaten them. Ideas are easy to applaud. Potential is easy to praise. But when your plans begin turning into results, their energy changes. They celebrate the possibility of your success, but not the reality of it. Do not waste your time arguing with this pattern. Study it. You do not need to convince anyone that your goals matter. You do not need permission to improve your life. And you certainly do not need to shrink yourself so someone else can stay comfortable. Still, remain wise. Not every disagreement is sabotage. Sometimes a friend sees a weakness you cannot yet see. Sometimes criticism is exactly what you need. The test is simple. Do they want you to become stronger? Even if your growth changes the relationship, a real friend may challenge you, but they will not secretly need you to fail. Your evolution will always reveal who values you and who only valued the version of you that was easier to manage. And trust. Trust is one of the most precious things you can give another human being. Trust gives someone access to the parts of you the world does not get to see. Your fears, your insecurities, your private struggles, your hopes, your unfinished dreams, the painful experiences you would never casually place in a stranger's hands. When trust is given to the right person, vulnerability becomes connection. It becomes healing. It becomes a bridge between souls. But when trust is placed in someone who secretly resents you, your vulnerability can become stored information, saved for the right moment, waiting to be used. That is why you must pay attention not only to what people know about you, but to what they do with what they know. A genuine friend may know your weaknesses and still protect them. They understand that your private battles are not entertainment, not ammunition, not material for public conversation. They may disagree with you. They may even become upset with you. But they do not deliberately expose what you trusted them to guard. A resentful person behaves differently. They remember the details you shared during your most vulnerable moments. Then when conflict comes, those details suddenly reappear. A fear you once confessed becomes an insult. A failure you once admitted becomes a joke. A private insecurity becomes something they mention in front of others. A dream you once revealed becomes proof in their eyes that you are unrealistic or incapable. Study the timing. People reveal themselves most clearly when emotions become intense. When everything is peaceful, almost anyone can appear trustworthy. But conflict tests character. Conflict reveals whether someone values the relationship more than their desire to win. If a person knows exactly where you are vulnerable and repeatedly chooses those places when they want to hurt you, that is not carelessness. That is a pattern. And you should take patterns seriously. Also, watch how your private information travels. Maybe you tell one friend something personal, and somehow other people begin to know. When you ask how it spread, the explanation is always vague. They say it was harmless. They say everyone already knew. They laugh and tell you that you are overreacting. But privacy does not become unimportant just because someone else fails to respect it. A person who respects you understands that access comes with responsibility. That does not mean you should live suspicious of everyone. If you treat every relationship like a threat, you will destroy your ability to build real connection. The lesson is not to stop trusting people. The lesson is to trust gradually, wisely, and with discernment. Watch what someone does with small pieces of information before giving them access to deeper parts of your life. Share something minor and see whether they protect it. Set a small boundary and see whether they respect it. Open up a little and observe whether they respond with maturity or carelessness. Over time, their behavior will tell you whether they deserve greater access. Trust should be earned by pattern, not demanded by words. Some people will say, "You can tell me anything," yet their actions will eventually expose whether that statement is true. Others will never make dramatic promises at all, and yet they will consistently protect your privacy, defend your dignity, and refuse to use your weakness against you. That is the difference between language and character. And when you discover that someone has repeatedly turned your vulnerability into a weapon, you do not need a dramatic confrontation to prove your strength. You can simply reduce their access. Stop sharing what they have not earned the right to hold. Stop handing them your deepest fears. Stop giving them information they have already shown they cannot carry responsibly. Boundaries are not punishment. Boundaries are protection. The strongest response to betrayal is not always revenge. Sometimes it is silence. Sometimes it is distance. Sometimes it is the quiet decision that this person will never again receive the same level of access to your inner world. Because once someone shows you they can weaponize your vulnerability, believe the pattern and protect what you reveal next. There is one more test of friendship many people overlook. Watch how someone behaves when an audience appears. A person may seem warm, loyal, and supportive when you are alone together, but the moment other people are present, their behavior changes. Suddenly they interrupt you more. Suddenly they compete for attention. Suddenly they reveal private things you expected to remain private. Suddenly they turn you into the subject of a joke, correct you in front of others, or try to make themselves look bigger by making you look smaller. The change may be subtle, but repeated shifts in public behavior often reveal deeper struggles with comparison, status, and resentment. Why does this happen? Because some people are not only concerned with the relationship, they are concerned with how the relationship makes them look. When you are alone, there is no audience to impress. There is no status to defend. But when other people enter the room, now there is comparison, attention, perception, and an opportunity to establish position. And someone who feels threatened by you may suddenly need to place themselves above you. Maybe you begin telling a story and they interrupt before you can finish. Maybe you mention an achievement and they instantly explain why it is not as impressive as it sounds. Maybe someone compliments you and your so-called friend quickly redirects the spotlight to themselves. Maybe they reveal something embarrassing about you and laugh as though it is harmless. But watch what happens after the laughter. Do they look genuinely playful, or are they watching your reaction? Are they trying to include everyone in harmless fun, or are they repeatedly making you the target? When someone else criticizes you, do they defend your dignity, or do they join in because it gives them social approval? These moments can reveal even more than private conversations because pressure exposes priority. A real friend does not need to diminish you in order to feel valuable. They can let you be seen without feeling invisible. They can celebrate your accomplishments without making the moment a competition. They can introduce you with pride instead of subtly undermining you. They can let you shine without needing to cast a shadow over your light. But someone who constantly measures themselves against you may experience your presence as a threat, especially when you begin receiving respect from the very people they want to impress. That is when they may become unusually critical. That is when they may correct insignificant details. That is when they may point out your mistakes, not to help you improve, but to make sure the audience sees them as superior. And again, do not overreact to one incident. People get nervous. People make awkward jokes. People interrupt without realizing it. Do not turn every uncomfortable moment into proof of betrayal. Look for consistency. Does this person repeatedly change when an audience appears? Do they become more competitive? Do they expose what should remain private? Do they make you feel smaller so they can feel larger? Do they seem uncomfortable when others admire you? Patterns deserve your attention, but so does your own balance. If you become obsessed with proving that someone secretly dislikes you, you can create conflict where none exists. The goal is not to become suspicious. The goal is to become perceptive. You do not need to confront every person whose behavior unsettles you. Sometimes observation is more powerful than confrontation. When you recognize a repeated pattern, quietly adjust the level of trust. You can remain polite without remaining vulnerable. You can remain kind without giving unlimited access. You can remain respectful while creating distance. Not every relationship deserves the same level of closeness. Some people belong in your inner circle. Others belong at a respectful distance. That difference should not be decided by history alone. It should be decided by loyalty, respect, and consistent behavior. The person who truly values you will not need an audience before they treat you well. So watch the transformation. Watch who they become when the room gets bigger, the attention gets stronger, and the opportunity to compete appears. Because sometimes the person standing beside you in private reveals their true feelings only when other eyes are watching. And through all of this, remember the most important lesson: never judge a friendship by one moment alone. People have bad days. People get jealous. People speak carelessly. People make mistakes they later regret. If you treat every disagreement, every missed message, every awkward interaction as proof that someone secretly hates you, you will invent enemies where there may be none. Real discernment is not paranoia. Real discernment is pattern recognition without fear. Words are easy to manage. Patterns are much harder to fake. Someone can tell you they care. They can call you family. They can promise loyalty. They can insist you can trust them. But in time, their behavior will reveal whether those words carry any substance. Watch how they respond to your success, your vulnerability, your boundaries, your ambitions, and your reputation. These moments expose character because they require genuine goodwill, not performance. Ask yourself what happens repeatedly. When you succeed, do they celebrate you or diminish you? When you struggle, do they support you or quietly enjoy your weakness? When you set boundaries, do they respect them or punish you for having them? When you share something private, do they protect it or eventually use it against you? When others are watching, do they defend your dignity or compete with you? No single answer defines a person, but a consistent pattern can. That is why you must stop listening only to what people say and start paying attention to what their behavior consistently produces. Someone may say they want the best for you while repeatedly making you doubt yourself. They may say they are joking while constantly humiliating you. They may call themselves supportive while discouraging every opportunity that could help you grow. Eventually, the contradiction becomes too obvious to ignore. But there is another danger waiting here: becoming so focused on identifying hidden enemies that you lose the ability to trust anyone. Suspicion can become its own prison. If you analyze every facial expression, every delay in a message, every shift in tone, you will never experience genuine connection because you will always be preparing for betrayal. That is not wisdom. That is fear. True awareness is calmer. It observes before it judges. It gathers evidence before it concludes. It communicates boundaries clearly. It gives people the chance to correct themselves. And when the same harmful pattern continues, it makes decisions based on reality, not emotional impulse. Sometimes the right response is not confrontation at all. You do not need to announce that you have figured someone out. You do not need revenge. You do not need to expose them publicly. You simply change the level of access they have to your life. Trust becomes more selective. Distance becomes necessary. Respect remains, but closeness is no longer automatic. You can wish someone well without allowing them into your inner circle. You can honor the history you shared without pretending the relationship is still healthy. You can appreciate what once was without sacrificing who you are becoming. Because not everyone who once mattered deserves unlimited access to the person you are growing into. People change, relationships change. A friendship that was healthy years ago may become unhealthy as your lives move in different directions. Sometimes there is no dramatic betrayal. Sometimes there is simply a widening gap in values, priorities, emotional maturity, and behavior. Do not force a relationship to remain close simply because it has existed for a long time. The people around you should not consistently leave you feeling smaller, anxious, humiliated, or unsure of your own worth. Friendship should not require you to abandon your boundaries just to keep the peace. Instead, choose your circle carefully enough that you do not have to live defensively within it. Look for people who can celebrate your success without competing with you, challenge you without humiliating you, protect your vulnerability without exploiting it, and remain loyal when there is nothing to gain. That is the standard. So do not become obsessed with who secretly hates you. Become wiser about who truly deserves your trust. Watch patterns. Protect your peace. Guard your boundaries. Let people's consistent behavior determine how much access they receive to your life. Because the highest form of discernment is not learning to suspect everyone. It is learning, with clarity and courage, exactly who you can safely trust.